The Honorable, the Speaker.
For Couva North.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And before the tea break, as I was saying, I was making mention of the role of the minister in his national consultation on local government at the Presal High School, spoke about the value and power of decentralization and used the Tobago House of Assembly and the U.S. state of Vermont as examples of local autonomy. And from time to time after that, as the consultations continued across Trinidad and Tobago, we would have heard, again, the THA coming up as it being an ideal model for local government reform and for the devolution of power and for local government resources to be delivered in a more effective manner. And, Madam Speaker, the THA, as we know, has become infamous in Trinidad and Tobago for, first, not submitting financial statements in a timely manner to the Auditor General's office. There have not been a report on the financial status of the THA since 2007, an Auditor General's report. And therefore, in recent times, we have seen, in fairness to the THA, that they have made an effort to submit documents, but again, not in a timely manner. And therefore, to talk about and to liken local government and the reformation of local government to the THA model is something that we need to be very, very mindful of. To me, Madam Speaker, the THA would be the worst model to implement for local government reformation. And we have seen over the years in many committees in Parliament that we have sat on, we have seen in questioning the THA and their financial operations, that they have really come short in doing what is right by the people in terms of accountability and transparency of their financial transactions and how they run the Tobago affairs under the THA. And therefore, we need to be very, very mindful of how we accept that type of ideology moving forward with respect to local government reform. And I will talk about what it is that we had in place and our consultation and what that brought forth during the years 2012 to 2013 when we had our national consultations on local government. What we need to take note of, especially, Madam Speaker, is that of the disparities in salaries. Now, when we do a comparison between the THA and what is happening in Trinidad with respect to the boroughs and the corporation, there's a huge disparity in salaries. And according to the 98 Salaries Review Commission, the salary of the Chief Secretary of the THA is $41,030 per month. And that is inclusive of course, transport facilities, subsistence allowance, housing, entertainment, vacation leave, overseas travel facilities. The travel grant for the Chief Secretary for the THA is $36,800 per annum. Telecommunication facilities, medical benefits, pension and gratuity, and the Deputy Chief Secretary and the Secretary Assistant Secretary, the salaries for those persons ranges from $25,240 a month to $19,150. So in itself, in that structure, you are seeing a deep disparity between the Chief Secretary and, of course, the officers directly beneath him. And that is something that needs to be addressed. And if the minister is speaking about likening local government reform to that of the THA model, is it that we are going to see a revamped remuneration package for our councillors and for our mayors here in Trinidad? Is it that we are going to be on par with what is taking place with the THA model? And I will support an initiative like that if it comes to that, because as the member for Tabaquite previously said, that the salaries for councillors and mayors and corporation chairmen is woefully inadequate as it stands right now. And of course, he spoke about the disparity in salaries with respect to the mayor of Port of Spain and the mayor of Point Fortin, where that range is by at least $5,000 to $6,000, a disparity of that amount. And therefore, we need that equality across the board when it comes to proper remuneration packages for our officers who serves. And of course, they are the first responders to the general public. So I would support a salary review and, of course, an increase in salaries for our councillors, our chairman, and our mayors here in Trinidad, if it is that the minister intends to hold fast to the THA model, where we see that the chief secretary salary and his deputy secretaries and all of that is extremely high. I think 41,000 is on par with that of the prime minister and ministers of cabinet in Trinidad, and therefore it's either we reduce across the board and make it equal for all, or we increase across the board so that everyone can enjoy a proper remuneration package. So that is something that I want to put forward to the minister. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, when you look at the THA model, you are seeing, because of the autonomy and so much power that they have unto themselves, that in some cases they have been unable to explain operations in various units within that THA model, the agricultural unit, be it the agricultural unit, transportation unit, etc. When we sat here for our budget review and we went through the balances, the statements, there were some projects that were allocated funding and allocated monies, and when questions were put to the officers from the THA, they were unable to explain, well, an update or give an update as to what is going on or how many monies have been expended over the years and all of that, with a promise, of course, to send the information later on to Parliament, which we did get. But at the end of the day, having so much power given to a body on autonomy, there needs to be proper checks and balances over these institutions. And it's really a travesty of justice, I would say, to a certain extent, to have so much power given to a body and not have proper accountability and transparency and even integrity of those said officers who, in some instances, as we know, I don't want to say accommodate, but of course we know of allegations of corruption in some of these, with some of these operations at the local government level, both at the THA level and of course at the local government level here in Trinidad. So, Madam Speaker, this is something that we need to address in moving forward. I think that the councillors and the chairman, mayors, they work extremely hard. They are, of course, as I said before, the first responders to the public, and they need to be properly remunerated. For many, many years before, we have had these councillors being abused out there. We all know how it goes on the ground. As members of Parliament, we know what exists and the reality of the situation. And therefore, I think the time is now, during the People's Partnership tenure in government over the past 5 years, this was something that we took on board. We had started to lay the base down with respect to revamping the remuneration packages for these councillors. We had also spoke about the criteria and requirements, Minister, with respect to choosing candidates and councillors and competent persons with a solid educational background, because if it is that you are going to go according to the THA model and give so much autonomy to the structures that you are putting in place, then you would need competent, qualified people to manage this particular operation that you're going to implement. And of course, it will take years and years. And at the same time, I want to caution the minister, don't let what happened to the THA happen to that model down here when implemented for local government. as far as it goes, as much as we have oversight committees and we have bodies who will, and the Auditor General's office and all of that, there needs to be an extended system or strategy, Minister, with respect to oversight on these regional corporations and boroughs. So that is something that we need to take into our own hands and be very proactive with that. Now, in a World Bank Institute study done in October 2000, they speak about corruption at the local level and strategies for combating corruption. And if you look at the white paper laid on local government reform by the People's Partnership Government, we spoke about building sustainable institutional reforms at the local level, which will include design of a participatory strategy, starting with a strong political will to reform. So the political will needs to exist. I think it exists on both sides for local government reform, because as members of parliament, we understand the daily challenges that we go through with respect to access to resources for our constituents. So your political will must be strong to move forward with local government reform. I know that the minister is quite experienced and aware that this is not going to happen overnight. This is something that may even move to a new government, not particularly that of a PNM government, but may have to continue. So structures and mechanisms will have to be put into place to ensure a continuum of local government reform and strategies moving forward. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, some of the tools that can be implemented to ensure that the corporations and the boroughs are run effectively is that, firstly, of citizen participation. And what is citizen participation? When we speak about citizen participation, I refer to programs, entities, or services that can be created to improve citizen participation in government. And this would mean regular meetings, having civil society participate in government, ordinance or other legal mechanisms that can be implemented, and of course, performance indicators for the delivery of key services through feedback from the general citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago. Another important tool to ensure the effectiveness of local government reform and administrative procedures is that of public hearings. So the public can access the information given, whether on a quarterly basis or an annual basis or even a monthly basis, from the administrators of the corporation and the boroughs to the constituents of that particular area. So public hearings is an effective tool, and they can be updated with respect to knowing how development is occurring within that particular area. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, you know, we always like to boast about having the mechanisms in place with respect to collecting info and data, but having a computerized data system that would allow for proper information to be collected and for little, well not little, but for simple services to be delivered to the people will prove to be very effective. And that was one of the plans that we had as a People's Partnership Government to move forward with a computerized data system. Because in many of our corporations, when you go today, and I'm sure that the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna would attest to this, it is still pen and paper records and files, and it's there. So we need to find a way quickly, Mr. Minister, to computerize our system so that information is readily available and that we can respond and allocate resources adequately where necessary. Auditing commissions, Madam Speaker, and I spoke earlier about the Office of the Auditor General. Auditing commissions also is an important tool or mechanism by which we can clamp down on local corruption at that level and also have proper accounting to the people of that particular area, and by extension, central government. So having an auditing commission is also very important. And in our white paper of 2013, after our local government reform, we spoke to that auditing commission also to implement an auditing commission to deal with expenditure. In addition to that, Madam Speaker, monitoring and evaluation. That is also a very important technique, such as public budgetary hearings, the computerized public works monitoring system, and local workshops. And these tools would monitor and evaluate. It is similar to performance indicators. It will evaluate how progress from within that particular borough or corporation is coming along. So this is another important tool that the minister can look at in terms of monitoring and evaluation. And I just want to reiterate, Madam Speaker, that this is nothing new. I know that it exists in some form or fashion at the Ministry of Local Government and by extension in every ministry, but there needs to be an upgrade of such tools and mechanisms. And we need to have our public officers reaffirm their commitment to continue to work in the best interest of our constituents at that level. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, as I move on, and I made mention of our local government reform consultations.
Honourable Member.
Sure. Couva North, your initial 30 minutes are expired. You're entitled to 15 more minutes. Do you intend to avail yourself of it?
Yes.
Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I want to speak a little bit about our local government reform that took place in 2013. We had 14 public consultations in every corporation, just as the goodly minister has had over the past couple of months. From those consultations, Madam Speaker, we had 2,000 persons attending, and the three key deliverables that were focused on were quality services, better communities, and stronger councils with a team for devolution. And it's the same that the minister is trying to, well, not trying, but it's the same that the minister has intentions of implementing. And it is of importance to note that the weaknesses identified, and it would be the same, or more or less the same, are as follows. The legislative framework is inflexible and does not facilitate change. The strict bureaucratic structure needs updating and enhancing. The duplication of services needs to be done away with. Lack of funding for state mandates and regulations. Inadequate human resource, accounting, auditing, fleet, asset, project, and performance management systems. Non-existent quality control measures. Lack of cohesion, planning, and economic development at the local level. Conflicting goals between national and local needs for budgeting. And this is very, very important, Madam Speaker, because we can come here and speak about national development and then go back to our respective constituencies and realize that we're woefully short of meeting national development at that local level. Some of the weaknesses that were identified were community participation and involvement, and I spoke about how we can go ahead to implement community participation and citizen participation. No sustainability in the delivery and access to public goods and services at the local level. Lack of vision and strategic thinking by councils. Lack of passion by councils in fulfilling their mandates. Generally slow rates of implementation. Non-existence of LED programs to facilitate self-sufficiency. And constant conflict and lack of trust between council and administrative staff, and inertia in dealing with customer complaints. And these were some of the weaknesses identified during our consultation period, which the minister himself now is privy to. So these are what we need to work on, Madam Speaker. I also want to make mention of the Code of Conduct for members of TTA, LGA, or TALGA, as they like to say. And this association is very, very important. The Code of Conduct for mayors, councillors, chairman, vice chairman is very, very important in moving forward. We would have heard the member of Tabaquite speak about having a passion to serve and, of course, being inspired also by the institutions. But having a formal arrangement where a code of conduct and, of course, review of these councillors and chairmen are always looked at is very, very important also. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, as members of Parliament, we are faced daily with situations and, of course, with challenges in terms of delivering resources to our constituents. And I understand that, and I know that, and I want to say that I'm very optimistic and hopeful that with this local government reform, that we will, of course, see an end to such challenges. Not an abrupt end, but as the minister would say, a phased and, of course, a phasing out of the old system into a new system. But I must caution again that the THA model that the minister is purporting out there, I know that he will clarify later on when he gets up to wind up, but that THA model is a dangerous and serious thing in alluding to and trying to bring about local government reform, because we have all had our nightmares with the THA in terms of scrutiny and otherwise. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, I want to say that the minister is responsible, and I said it earlier, is responsible at this time for, in the interim, for providing the necessary resources and through the funding of the Ministry of Local Government and even other ministers on the Ministry of Local Government, Works and Infrastructure and all of that. They are responsible in the interim for providing the necessary resources so that people can deal with their problems, issues can be dealt with, and we can have proper infrastructure, we can have proper markets when we visit our constituencies, we have proper roads. That is the responsibility of local government. And at this time, as a Member of Parliament in a UNC-held constituency, we are not seeing the level of service and delivery as expected. And again, I will go on to reiterate that it is not because, and you know, it would be very sad to note and to say that politics are playing off at the end of the day. You have politics playing off. It's a PNM government in control now. They are in charge, as they like to say. And because of that, the UNC-held constituencies are without the resources or the necessary resources, even when we are very specific and we request them via letter or phone call or some other way of communication. So it is very, very important that we not wait for the local government reformation and transformation to take place and wait for the Minister of Local Government to implement before we deliver. It is necessary that it continues, delivery continue. The minister at this time should place a lot of emphasis on listening to the members of parliament and responding to their calls for resources in many different areas, and by extension, all of the ministers. Madam Speaker, it is not without a level of frustration sometimes that we members of parliament face when we go to our constituencies and we are, of course, bombarded with roads issue and rivers and natural water courses and drainage and all of that. So I'm making a plea to the Minister of Local Government to see how best his technocrats around him can equitably distribute the resources to the various constituencies so that we too can have happy constituents, because as politicians it's our job to make the lives of our constituents and the people of the country satisfying, satisfactory, comfortable, happy, and therefore as a Member of Parliament I have been faced with brick walls, and I made mention of it earlier, and I speak for my colleagues also. We've been faced with brick walls when it comes to accessing the necessary resources. And I also want to say responding to a letter is not just what we are looking for. We also want to see action behind that. So you respond with a letter, you acknowledge that we need resources, and then you deliver to us in some form or fashion. Again, I would reiterate, when we were in government, we did not discriminate. And I would be honest to say that. Every single Member of Parliament, when then in opposition, approached us, we would find some way to assist. Even if we couldn't do it, we would go into the constituencies. We would toy. I remember toying with the Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, even though much wasn't done after at that point in time. But we toured, we communicated with you, we came, we tried to assist at that level, and I am sure nothing still.
Nothing happened.
Exactly. Still nothing has happened. So, Madam Speaker, I just again want to reiterate that we on this side support the EBC order. Minister, you have a huge task ahead of you, and test, so to speak. I want to say that we are optimistic. The groundwork has been laid. We have had numerous consultations. We have been out there, the previous government. We have done some work in local government in terms to set the base up for reform and all of that. And we really hope that you would take it seriously. I know that you're a serious minister. We really hope that you would take it on board as to what we have to say here at this point, and to also listen, because the member for Tabakeed was a previous minister in local government, and he made mention of some issues and scenarios to you, and I know that you would have taken it on board, and to listen to what we are saying as members of parliament, because right now, as a government, you're coming across as very arrogant and inaccessible. And that's just how it is. Arrogant and inaccessible. So at the end of the day, you have some time ahead of you to make up for that, and I really hope that you would continue to serve in the best interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I know you have good intentions, Minister of Local Government, and therefore we support the order, we support local government reform. However, I don't think we support the THA model or the ideology of going to that THA model of full autonomy and no accountability and no transparency, where it is we have been waiting since 2007 for Auditor's General report. So, Madam Speaker, with that, I thank you.
Honourable members, the sitting is suspended for 10 minutes.
You're viewing the Parliament Channel 11, also broadcasting on 105.5 FM.
Our democracy was created for us to be free.
And
we, the people of Trinidad and Our democracy was created for us to be free.
And
we, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, have asserted our belief in a democratic society
in which all persons may,
to the extent of our capacity, play some part in the institutions of national life,
and thus develop and maintain due respect for lawfully
constituted authority.
Welcome to the Parliament, where the people whom we elect come to debate issues of national importance and decide on what best represents the voices, the concerns, and the best policies for the citizens of our country. We are going to examine two important figures in our Parliament, our presiding officers.
Have you ever heard of the presiding officers?
No. Who are they?
Well, the presiding officers are responsible for the smooth functioning of the many proceedings of our bicameral parliament.
Bicameral?
That just means that we have two legislative or parliamentary chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives, for checks and balance.
The roles of the presiding officers are truly impressive. These officials hold the fourth and fifth highest offices in our land. They are the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. Ideally, the Senate seeks to represent and take into account the views and interests of those in society who may be insufficiently reflected within the elected House. The House of Representatives is made up of the elected representatives of the 41 constituencies.
House of Representatives.
That's where the members of parliament who've been elected to represent their constituencies meet to debate national issues.
So what about the Senate?
The Senate comprises of persons specially appointed by the President of Trinidad and Tobago, the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition.
So the President of the Senate presides over the Senate.
And the Speaker of the House presides over the House of Representatives.
And together, they are the presiding officers.
They are the first ones elected by their respective houses after the general election so that the business of the houses can proceed.
The presiding officers ensure that all parliamentary debates are conducted in an orderly way. Parliament members must catch the eye of the presiding officer to be granted permission to speak. And all parliamentary members must address the presiding officer with respect as Mr. or Madam Speaker, or Mr. or Madam President, because presiding officers have the highest position in any parliamentary house.
The presiding officers also ensure that parliamentary rules and the law are followed during debating, regulating the time for speaking, so that Parliament runs smoothly. They also have the final say on any dispute using the rules of procedure.
So that is why they're called the presiding officers.
Yes, because their main function is to be the referee of each house as they guide and regulate the proceedings. This is symbolized by the maces of each house.
Maces?
Each house has an ornamental mace as a symbol of the presiding officer's authority.
Why a mace?
Well, it has its roots in European monarchy as a real weapon to guard the monarch. But as weaponry and government evolved, it became a symbol of authority vested in democratic government.
The ornamental mace is carried in and out of Parliament by the Marshal. It precedes and leaves with the presiding officers of each house. Each house has its own special design on its mace.
Other than presiding in the chambers, the presiding officers also have ceremonial duties,
where they participate in the opening of Parliament and sometimes lead major parliamentary delegations to other countries or attend regional conferences here in TNT. High commissioners and ambassadors come one and come all to pay courtesy calls on the presiding officers in our country to foster deeper relationships between nations and legislatures. Additionally, the President of the Senate can in fact fulfill the role and duties of the President of Trinidad and Tobago when he is out of the country or ill.
So that is a lot of work for just one role. Do they have any help?
Well, there's the Vice President of the Senate and the Deputy Speaker of the House, in addition to the Clerk of the House and other parliamentary officers who are well versed in parliamentary procedure and rules. There are also ways in which other key personnel in Parliament assist the presiding officers in the execution of their third major function.
You mean there's more?
Yes, the presiding officers are also the administrators for the Parliament.
They ensure that all is secure in the Parliament building and its surroundings for the safety of its members. The Marshal of the Parliament as well as the Parliament Police Unit are charged with this responsibility.
Both presiding officers also chair several committees of Parliament, such as the Committee of Privileges, which deals with ensuring that the rights that are afforded to members are not abused in any way. There's also the Standing Orders Committee, which reviews the standing orders from time to time to make changes to the rules that govern how Parliament functions.
So how do you know what to look for in a presiding officer?
Well, they must be impartial, independent and authoritative.
The presiding officers have big responsibilities in the Senate and House of Representatives. And you know what that means? That they must have excellent qualities. Once elected, the presiding officers must put aside all party affiliations and be impartial in every ruling made to make sure that every voice is heard with equal representation, balancing the majority with the minority. They must embody the authority invested in them, allowing for respect from one and all, as they are the representatives of the Parliament itself in its powers, proceedings, and dignity.
The presiding officers have important roles in maintaining checks and balances in the Parliament, the seat of our democracy.
We hope that you got a glimpse into how much responsibility a presiding officer has, and that maybe one day you too might aspire to be elected to such an important office to serve your country.
Honorable, the Speaker.
Tunapuna.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise to join this debate today, and I must say that I must extend gratitude to the Leader of Government Business, Member for Aruka Maloney, for granting me the opportunity to speak at this debate. She did not mention to me whether it is as a result of my track record of being a local government practitioner for over 5 years. I will leave that up for you all to say. All right, for the last 5 years at the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, I thank you. I thank you, Member for Tabakit. And also the Vice Chairman of the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation from 2013 to 2015. Probably it could be testimony as a result of my elevation to be a member of this Honorable House as the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna. And as a result, I give God thanks. My Honorable Member for Couva North. You know, I have my prepared speech, but I just want to, speak about make one or two comments that she would have identified. She spoke about discrimination with regards to contractors. And yes, at the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, most of the contractors that worked within my electoral district was basically, we had a saying, south of the Caroni Bridge. For whatever reason, most of them came from south of the Caroni Bridge. And this is why the Honorable Minister for Local Government and Urban Development is pushing basically for the reform and rural development in order to minimize or to eliminate that amount of discrimination so that local contractors within the local electoral district would be utilized in the first instances. And that's one point which I would like to really, rebut based on her debate. The other aspect she spoke about is with regards to funding. And it's true. I spent 5 years as local government councillor. 3 of those 5 years were under a UNC-controlled centralized governance. And a lot of the funding were held back. All right, we would have had Minister Shamfa, we would have had Minister Ramdial, who is now the member of Tabakit. We would have had Honorable Cudjoe, and many occasions, developmental funding, ongoing debate, ongoing development for projects were always held back during those regime. Thank you, Honorable. The Tobago House of Assembly model. She is saying it is not a model to copy or to put in stream. But the only negative justification she can speak about is with regards to the delay in financial auditing that has been taking place. That's the job for the internal auditor. Right? That's the job for the internal auditor. But with regards to the plan, with regards to the whole model of that THA, Tobago House of Assembly model under the Chief Secretary over London is ideal. And we on this side we on this side will be looking at that model as we continue along with the local government reform. The last thing members on the other side should really speak about is with regards to transparency, accountability, and integrity. She spent a lot of time talking about that again. And again, Honorable Madam Speaker, right, we on this side are all about good governance, and we are going to ensure that with this local government reform, transparency, accountability, and integrity will be the main pillars as we go forward. Selection of candidates, again, she spoke about that. Everyone knows the People's National Movement have a rigorous, rigid, fair, and democratic process in choosing their candidates. And we choose the best candidates. To say I could be one of the testimonies as a result of that, and all my members on this side. Honorable Madam Speaker, computerization, we are in 2016, and definitely any local government reform would have to ensure that we look at computerization, look at the auditing functions as we go forward. The Honorable Member for Couva North spoke about consultations in 2012. Yes, they had consultations, but none of their ministers, 3 during their term, between 2010 to 2015, brought no legislation, no bills to this House in order to make local government reform a reality. So it's only talk and talk that the Honorable Member for Couva North would have given us. She spoke about also, they did the same, a number of consultations. But keep in mind, it was not at the same cost. And that's very important. It was not at the same cost. So this is why we are here today debating this reform. And we're going to minimize discrimination, which would be one of the main things, with regards to products and services, delivery in order for the burgesses, so that all the communities can benefit. Just would like to also spend 2 minutes on the minister, the member for Tabaquite. No legislation was ever brought by you, sir. You would have spoken on many occasions about justification and what you have, and you spoke about your local government policy booklet on modernization and transformation, but you all brought not a bill, nil legislation, zilch to this House during the last 5 years. And within 8 months of Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley attaining office to be the Prime Minister of this country, and the local government minister and rural development is now piloting this bill in order to ensure that local government reform will be a reality. People empowerment. Who else can talk about people empowerment? Statutory meetings. Everyone knows. Statutory meetings were held on a monthly basis, going out to rural districts, other areas, so that we can get people involvement, empowering the people and burgesses of the communities as we go forward. Under the chairmanship of Alderman Edwin Gooden at the Tunapuna Regional Corporation, we held numerous statutory meetings in various districts, Madam Speaker, during our term. One thing he said that I think I totally will accept with regards to local government practitioners being remunerated, in a better position. Definitely there is need for increase, whether we call it stipend, whether we call it a salary, traveling, vehicles and so on, definitely. Councillors are the first point of contact. We are the ones that come into day-to-day contact with all burgesses, whatever the situation, personal, private, we encounter different aspects on a daily basis. So definitely there's need for some sort of justifiable remuneration as we continue along. You spoke about urban bias, member for Tabaquite. And again, yes, rates and taxes will be collected by the various corporations, but you will still have your allocation, your budgetary allocations, which would come from the Ministry of Finance in order to ensure that across the board, each one of the 14 corporations would ensure that they have the necessary buying power to ensure that development takes place within the various electoral districts. So definitely, there is no need to worry about an urban bias. And then keep in mind that even though we are talking about eliminating the Ministry of Local Government, there will still be a Ministry of Rural Development to ensure that some of those rural areas would not be neglected by this People's National Movement government. Self-sustaining communities, especially in the rural areas, being denied. Definitely that would be a thing of the past as we continue along. The municipal police. Yes, we know that we will have to bring legislation to this parliament in order to ensure that the necessary levels and roles of authority are respected with regards to the Ministry of National Security. And of course, we'll be looking along those lines. We need to ensure adequate staffing of municipal police, and we also need to ensure that proper working conditions exist for them. At the Tunapuna Piaku Regional Corporation, where I spent 5 years, we had a total of 4 municipal police, 4 members of municipal police for a period of time. And we have heard of Tunapuna Piaku Regional Corporation being the largest throughout Trinidad and Tobago. And no way those 4 officers could have do the duties in order to ensure that we had adequate supervision within the necessary communities. So, Madam Speaker, those are just some points that I just needed to rebut with regards to those 2 members. And I know from debating, you would justify in your debate what you need to say. And at the end of it, she said that she will be supporting the bill. Not she, the member for Couva North. And that the honorable member will be supporting the bill. And I accept that gratefully. Again, we often hear the saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. And today, Madam Speaker, the Tunapuna constituency that I have the privilege of representing, and the party to which I belong, the People's National Movement, expect leaders to lead. Leaders must always do the right thing. Leaders must always do the right thing. In our election campaign of 2015, one of the pillars of our campaign was with regards to good governance, and I repeat, good governance, Madam Speaker. Good governance is the key to having a good democracy. Madam Speaker, in keeping with the construct and positioning of the support and enabling system to ensure maintenance and ongoing efficacy of good governance and local government reform, we also indicated that we would not only obey the laws of the land, but seek to make adjustments. And this is why we are here today, this day in May, with this Elections and Boundaries Commission, Local Government and Tobago House of Assembly Order 2016. I must remind you or inform you that during the campaign of 2015, some 8 months ago, we, the members on this side, acknowledged and highlighted that one of the possible failings and functioning of our political and administrative reasons in good governance was and still is that local governments is the local government system. We definitely need to look at the reform in order to ensure that accountability, to ensure that equal distribution of the wealth of Trinidad and Tobago is equally distributed among the electoral districts that exist within Trinidad and also with the Tobago House of Assembly in Tobago. Madam Speaker, our colleagues on the other side came out to defeat this proposal, looking back to past attempts while seeking to overlook and hide their own 5 years of neglect of their promises to the contrary. Their claims of expertise in the areas of good governance and local government reform leaves much to be desired. We would have heard the 2 debaters. And again, they are not in a position to justify in order to say what positives they would have done during the period of 5 years in order to ensure that they would have remained on this side. Local government, Madam Speaker, is local. At the end of the day, burgesses, communities are interested in what takes place on their streets, are interested in what takes place where they live, in the area that they traverse on a daily basis. So the potholes in front of their homes, the street lights, the water leaks that they are presented with on a daily basis, that are their main concerns. So definitely, Madam Speaker, we need to ensure that with the changes that's due to come with the local government reform bill, as the minister mentioned, which will be coming sometime soon to this house, we look forward to ensure that communities will continue to develop, that growth will be able to take place, and that communities and burgesses will be able to receive what they desire within their communities. Madam Speaker, the laying of this particular EBC report in the House today at this time would attest to the importance we have placed on local government system. The report before the House this evening has an initial date of June 2014. We are now meeting in May 2016, merely 8 months upon attaining office in September 2015. Madam Speaker, we have heard for the last 5 years the other side's mantra: serve the people, serve the people, serve the people. But serve the people in what capacity? Serve the people how? I may ask today, Madam Speaker. Again, I have been the local government councillor for the Tunapuna area, and on many occasions, it was to-in and fro-in, fighting on a daily basis in order to ensure that I get the services and amenities within my area, in order to ensure that, again, Tunapuna would have attained its share of the pie, of the public pie within the community. In what way can we look at serving the people? We can say they were extremely correct. They serve the people in what way? They serve the people how? And have they served the people of Trinidad and Tobago on a table of bad governance? It's clear. The People's National Movement now control the reins of power in Trinidad and Tobago. And it is clear that as a result, that local government reform, local government plays a critical role. Because when we look back, local government, Madam Speaker, entails every particular aspect. Local government serve the people in many ways, and we can identify solid waste management, canine control, rodent control, removal of derelict vehicles, supply of truck-borne water, implement immunization programs, inspection of food premises, processing of building plans, cleaning and clearing of drains, installation of replacement of street lamps, emptying of septic tanks. Madam Speaker, I could go on and on. Repaving of roads, construction of vending facilities, maintenance of pavilions, open spaces, recreational facilities, disaster management. Local government is all-encompassing in the governance of Trinidad and Tobago, and this government is playing a critical role in ensuring that local governance is given the preeminence that it deserves in order to ensure good governance as we continue on. Madam Speaker, I must say, this 2013 manifesto of the People's National Movement is the only political party, Madam Speaker, that would have done 14 individual manifestos for the 2013 local government elections. It shows the uniqueness of local government. So for Tunapuna, within the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation, there was one manifesto. For Mayaro, for Separia, for Pinal Debe, for Diego Martin, for Sandy Grandi, individual manifestos. Because again, local government is dynamic. Local government is all-encompassing. So again, we on this side have seen the importance of it in order to ensure that we look at it from that important point of view to ensure good stability, good governance as we go forward, Madam Speaker. We on this side will continue to demonstrate good governance. We will continue to demonstrate authentic leadership style. And having been processed through the local government system, I would have identified my accolades already. I stand in this honorable house today in order to support this Elections and Boundaries Commission, Local Government and Tobago House of Assembly Order 2016. My colleague who would have spoken earlier, he said he was the Deputy Mayor of Arima and also the Councillor for the Malabar area, now Minister of Education. and also the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna. We are testimonies in this house, along with my colleague also from Diego Martin Central, the Honorable Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs, Darrell Smith, another local government product coming out of local government system in the Diego Martin area. Right, okay, right. And we had Alderman, the Honorable Faris Alwari, Attorney General, and many others that would have gone through. Because again, we on this side, the People's National Movement, a dynasty, an institution that continue to produce. And in this house, we have today 3 present members who would have served during the 2010-2015 term, now serving as members of Parliament and ministers, and of course, Deputy Speaker of this Honorable House. That is good testimony to authentic leadership and good governance under our Prime Minister, the Honorable, the Right, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. I thank him for the opportunity to serve. For many a year, Madam Speaker, we have heard and experienced failings and inefficiencies of both of the local government system. I repeat, it's just one of the forerunners processes, procedures needed to fertilize and grow the tree of governance that will bear fruits of good governance, not only in this dry season, but continuing thereafter in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, this order would allow holding of elections in cities, boroughs, municipalities, corporations, and also the Tobago House of Assembly. It will also allow for the burgesses, communities, and other institutions resident in cities, boroughs, and municipal corporations, such as the Tunapuna Piako, resulting in their burgesses having a greater say, a greater role, a greater influence and impact on their daily lives and relationship with their governance structures. The Honorable Minister of Local Government and also Rural Development would have mentioned, right, there are 14 corporations, 5 municipalities, 9 regional corporations, 8 being controlled by the People's National Movement, 6 being by the United National Congress. A total of 136 electoral districts, of which 84 are in the control of the People's National Movement, 46 UNC, 3 COP, and 3 ILP. They need not worry. With this reform, equal distribution will take place. The member for Tabakita and also for Couva North spoke about, Madam Speaker, the idea of discrimination and the idea of equitable distribution of resources. Yes, the rates and taxes will be retained by each corporation, but budgetary allocations would come from central government. Will come from central government, Madam Speaker, as we continue along. We on this side, and I expect and not anticipate, with the confirmation of this order, the laying and passage of the local government reform bill in the near future, to no longer witness the obscene spectacle of local government bodies claiming discrimination of goods and services, equitable distribution in terms of funding and procedural practices. Practices, Madam Speaker, which gives rise and contribute considerably to mismanagement, inefficiencies, waste, damage to and the loss of services to our burgesses and communities, such as experienced by the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation. The Honourable Minister spoke about the 9 main points, or the 9 pillars of which the local government reform would be standing on. He identified 4 of them. One that we can equally speak about, which is very important, is with regards to fostering and creating a formal consultative process and forum where NGOs, CBOs, and other civil society groups and interested parties can comment on and critique the projects, plans, and programs of local government bodies before they are implemented and make recommendations for improvement. Open door policy, where members of the public, burgesses, constituents will be able to go to the various regional corporations, voice their concerns, voice the inhibitions, talk about what they would like to see within their areas in order to ensure that, again, they play their role in local government. Madam Speaker, another pillar that we would like to ensure is to completely restructure and decentralize the system for the implementation of local infrastructure projects to allow municipal corporations to engage directly suitable qualified local contractors for drainage and road work, among other infrastructure projects, to allow work on these projects to commence in a timely manner. The bureaucracy, the red tape that we would also talk about, the protocols. Not that we are going to provide loopholes, but we are going to put legislation in place in order to ensure that things are done on a timely basis. We talk about contractors. Yes, those same contractors, once they are utilized within your community, Madam Speaker, will be able to hire burgesses and constituents from within. We heard about the Honorable Minister of Education, the member for Arima, speaking about the resurfacing of the grass area in Arima and outside individual doing the job. We talk about the pride. We talk about the idea of individuals doing it with a certain amount of commitment. So the individuals from Tunapuna, the contractors from Tunapuna will be given work in Tunapuna area. Persons and burgesses within Tunapuna will be allowed to work with these contractors. They will be allowed to work with pride, with commitment, in order to say, yes, we are developing Tunapuna, we are developing St. Augustine, we are developing Maracas, we are developing Cora, El Dorado, Tacarigua, and they will take the pride in order to ensure. And those are some of the things that we would like on this side to ensure that with the local government reform take place and pass by this Honorable House, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we the people of the Tunapuna constituency and the Tunapuna-Piako Regional Corporation region expect and anticipate many improvements with the confirmation of this order and the revised arrangements, which are expected to flow from this with the local government reform bill in the near future. May I note and bring to the attention of all and sundry that Tunapuna and the Tunapuna-Piako region, all the areas covered by this bill, will undergo the most adjustments and changes. We have heard for many years that Tunapuna-Piako encompasses the biggest physical area in terms of land space. We have heard the Tunapuna-Piako Regional Corporation of having over 270,000 members, people within the community. And then with the information in this bill, where we have 169 plus electors for the particular area, 169,000 plus. So in terms of being the highest, Tunapuna-Piako Regional Corporation is the largest of all the 14 corporations. And in this new bill, there is room where provisions will be provided for one more, which will be the Karapo area, where it has been clearly identified that Karapo will now form its own electoral district. And then there are some changes, some 9 changes within the other 15 electoral districts. So Tunapuna-Piako Regional Corporation will now have 16 electoral districts in local government. And the slight changes with regards to the boundaries. I'm seeing one of my constituents there, Mr. Nigel Henry, is in the public gallery. So I know he's here to get first-hand information on the necessary EBC changes here this evening. Madam Speaker, we the people of Tunapuna, and may I say the people of the Tunapuna-Piako region, have always risen to the occasion. Have always risen to the occasion. We have heard of Tunapuna being a marginal seat, and who wins Tunapuna wins the election. St. Joseph. St. Joseph too well. San Fernando West. San Fernando West. The top 5. The top 5. But Tunapuna is what? Number 1. However it be. But we can't bring in Nigel Henry now to debate that, all right? We can't. But Madam Speaker, right, at the end of the day, Tunapuna constituency and the Tunapuna-Piako region wants its fair share. We look forward to this reform. We look forward to the EBC changes. We recommend the EBC changes. We recommend the idea of the minister coming forward with the local government reform bill as soon as possible in order to ensure that this reform takes place and catapults the Trinidad and Tobago community into the type of governance we would like it to see. Madam Speaker, as a follower and a participant, and as a participant in authentic leaders and leadership, I can only do the right thing and support the confirmation of the Elections and Boundaries Commission, Local Government and Tobago House of Assembly Order 2016. Again, Madam Speaker, we can talk about local government and the positive nature that it can have on the politics of Trinidad and Tobago, the importance of development of Trinidad and Tobago. And we look forward on this side in order to ensure. It would have also slipped me to mention in terms of the social aspect that local government also perform. And we on this side in the reform are also looking forward to that aspect where the councillors will be individuals that can recommend to the Ministry of Social Development individuals who can so qualify or who may be fitting for a TT food card, for disability, for grants of whatever nature, even with regards to the situation of housing. Because councillors, and as my member for Tabakit said, if you are a good councillor and a great councillor, you would have total communication, total control of your particular area. That's a good thing. That's a man's best friend. Yeah, you know, and it's important to ensure that the local government councillors, and with regards to individuals and the rigidity and the democratic nature that the People's National Movement carries through with regards to the selection of their candidates, I, as the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna, will have no worries, will have no concerns with regards to the selection of candidates.
Your original 30 minutes are now spent. You have an additional 15 minutes. Do you intend to avail yourself of it?
I would like to ensure that it wouldn't be that long.
You may continue.
Thank you. Yes, and I look forward to those things. Councillors work along with the Ministry of Health and Insect Vector with regards to Zika, dengue, chikungunya or chickpea, mosquito spraying, seeing about abandoned lots, maintenance. Right now, within the Tunapuna Piakolo region, they are doing an excellent work with regards of cleaning abandoned lots and eradication of all these various diseases in order to ensure that, again, the region will benefit from the different services that provide. There is definitely need for reform, Madam Speaker. Simple things as in schools, a pipe, a toilet to be adjusted, some minor repair where the local government councillor or where the workers within the region can go in and see about. We have no jurisdiction in order to go in and see about those things. The bureaucracy that takes place with having to go through the Ministry of Education or the Education Facilities Limited. Simple things can be done, and we are saying with the reform, everything within your local district, the government agencies, the local schools, the local churches, they can now benefit from this reform, and they will benefit from these reforms. So, Madam Speaker, again, as I said, I am grateful for being selected to speak today on this local government reform, and I'm sure that the leader of government business and member for Aruka Maloney, who knows of my track record, would have definitely, when it came up, said that yes. So, Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank you for my contribution today and look forward to the passage of this bill and also to the further presentation of the local government reform bill. I thank you.
Member for Caroni East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is not my intention to prolong the House on the debate of this bill, but there are two important considerations for the Honourable Minister and the presenter of this bill to consider, and of course to respond in a brief manner to the presentations by the member for Arima and the member for Tunapuna. Just some small points there. First of all, the last speaker, the Member of Parliament for Tunapuna, two major areas, major themes in his presentation came out, one on performance and one on equity. And there is no question, Madam Speaker, that we on this side can pride ourselves for eternity that the People's Partnership Government in 2010 to 2015 had been the best performing government that this country ever saw in its history. And even though we may be on this side, that is, the people had their views on it, and PNM is on that side. May I remind colleagues on the other side that is only approximately 2,500 votes in 3 constituencies that made the difference between they on that side and we on this side. The 3 constituencies that we lost, Tunapuna, La Hoketa, Talparo, and Moruga Tableland. And when you summarize the approximately 2,000 in St. Joseph and so on, and you divide it by half, if half those people who voted for PNM had voted for the People's Partnership, it came out to only about 2,500 votes or voters that separated us from there to here. So when you blow your trumpet, well, the people have put you there, but within a space of 8.5 months, the people have seen the error and the mistakes that they have made. Some are very quiet about it, some are more vocal, but the people are suffering. Some of them are suffering silently, and they have indicated that the PNM have really betrayed the trust and confidence that they thought that they would have had in this government. And everyone knows now that within 8.5 months, nothing has been happening. And that has been said time and time again, so I wouldn't continue to dwell on that. So on the question of equity, also, our Prime Minister during the 2010 to 2015 always maintained the dignity of having to serve all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. It was a people-centered government. And in everything we did as a government and as ministers, we have been led by the Honorable Prime Minister. We did it for all the people, for the entire country. And in every ministry, whether it is in works, whether it's in education, whether it's in health, whatever area, whether it's public utilities, the work of the People's Partnership Government had been spread across the country in an equitable fashion and an equitable manner. And people would say up to today that it was a performing government that worked for all the people. They may have their reasons why they did not support us in the end, but that is, the people have their right to choose, and we respect their choice. But it is our right now to keep the government in check and let them be responsible for what is happening. And so, in terms of performance and equity, and we can go on to speak about all the infrastructural projects and so on, but that is not for today. And we can pride ourselves for value for money. And I, as Minister of Education, I can speak about the equity in the distribution, the construction of schools across the country. And when we left government after 5 years, our Prime Minister at that time had indicated that to the Minister of Education that the infrastructure in the education system, the schools, the 476 schools in Trinidad and Tobago, primary schools, and 134 secondary schools, and over 200 ECCE centers, we have to bring them to a state of a beautiful state so that the children could have a beautiful environment in which they can have their education. And we went about to construct new schools. 102 new schools were constructed by the People's Partnership Government, Madam Speaker. 102 schools, and you can check it. it was all, I'm just responding to.
Honorable Member, might I remind you of the provisions of Standing Order 48-1?
I'll crave your indulgence to respond to the statements made by the Honourable Member of Parliament for Arima on the education system. And I was referring to...
Honourable Member, I would remind you of what the contents of the motion is. And even though you may be responding, I've been sitting here, I heard the Honourable Member for Arima, and even though schools were spoken about, was spoken in the context of what local government reform will do.
Right, in that context, Madam Speaker, no local government reform will be able to help in the construction of 102 new schools which the People's Partnership comes up with. No local government reform will bring on the construction of another 98 schools across the country. And even with good intention, the minister speaking about bringing all the regional corporations to help into repairs of schools, it is with pride and a privilege that, as Minister of Education, the Educational Facilities Company Limited was able to do over 5,600 repairs and maintenance projects in all the schools of Trinidad and Tobago.
On Standing Order 48-1. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Caroni, I would remind you what is the subject matter. You've been allowed a little leeway, but please come back to the relevance of the motion before this House.
I'm just asking the question, Madam Speaker, can this be done by local government? Cannot. I will ask the Honourable Minister to answer on that issue when he is winding up. I want to respond to the Honourable Member for Arima, the Minister of Education, when he said that he inherited a litany of problems. A plethora of problems. A plethora. Well, a litany, plethora, a multitude of problems. May I remind the House, Madam Speaker, in reference to his statement, that if he considered the construction of 102 new schools and 98 under construction and the 5,600 repair and maintenance projects across all the schools across Trinidad and Tobago, 95,000 students getting laptops, 6,000 teachers being trained with ICT, 2 million textbooks given to students.
Madam Speaker, I rise on Standing Order 48-1 again.
Honourable Member for Caroni East, I have warned you, I am cautioning you. Please get back to the subject matter of the motion.
Madam Speaker, all these areas cannot be dealt with under a local government portfolio, and therefore when the decision is made to deal with the whole education aspect, and two of the speakers speaking about education, two of the speakers spoke about education, I want to humbly suggest that these matters that we are dealing with cannot be handled in a proper manner by the local government. In addition, if there are 14 regional corporations, well, 5 municipal and 9 regional corporations, and you have to do construction or repairs of schools, you have to set up 14 parallel management structures. It's not by VAPs. You have to go for tender. You have to evaluate the tender. You have to understand what needs to be constructed. So you have to have project manager, engineers, and a plethora of personnel, across the 14 corporations, five municipal and 9 regional. So I want to draw a parallel. I want to draw a parallel to the regional health authorities, which the Honorable Minister of Health has always been seeing, the former Minister of Health. We moved from a situation where the Ministry of Health had controlled health, and it was the PNM administration in 1994 that brought on 5 regional health authorities, 4 in Trinidad and 1 in Tobago. And we are seeing now that there is redundancy in the whole management of it, and whether that is working to the benefit of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I remember 1994, Madam Speaker, I was there. Your Minister of Labor was the PSA president at the time, and I was representing at that time the NAR on the discussions with respect to the regional health authorities, which is, they were speaking about decentralization, not devolution of authority. It was decentralization. And whether we can say now that that is working properly is a question we have to ask and answer with discussions and debate, whether the regional health authorities model is working well. So now, when the Honorable Minister is speaking about, and I want to congratulate my distinguished colleague, a management expert from Tabakit, the Member of Parliament for Tabakit, on his contribution. You saw excerpts of his lectureship ability when he gave his contribution on the management aspects of what is really required in the regional corporations. So are we going to set up 14 parallel bodies trying to do the same thing? And whether this is something that the PNM administration will have to consider, because you may have the duplication or 14 times the type of personnel you have in one regional corporation multiplied 14 times. And whether that will be cost effective, whether it be efficient, and whether they will be able to do a competent job is something for their consideration. The other point I can't leave, Madam Speaker, I must respond to the question of the HVAC system. He spoke about one of the schools that was Arangwe's government secondary, which he inherited with an HVAC system. It was the PNM government that made sure that there were... PNM government was the one in 2009 who made sure that the HVAC system was a system for central air conditioning for all secondary schools. And we inherited that mess from them with almost $15 to $30 million more. I'm just closing now.
Member, I would ask you to leave that point because it's irrelevant. It was said in a particular context. And therefore, if you could come back to the subject matter, if not, I will exercise my powers against, you're not speaking to the relevance of the matter.
Madam Speaker, the House is well air conditioned, that's fine, that's beautiful. But the schools are not well air conditioned because of the PNM. Because of the PNM. Madam Speaker, there are 2 areas I want to ask for consideration on the bill. I heard that you retired twice already. Have you gone into retirement? On the motion. The first is, we have 5 municipal corporations and 9 regional corporations. We have 136 electoral districts. We are asking for a total evaluation and analysis of the electoral districts across the country, because you would, as the Honorable Minister would have done his research and found that in the municipal corporations like Port of Spain and Arima and so on. Port of Spain, for example, will have about one councillor to about 3,000 or 4,000 burgesses, or even less than that. And in other regional corporations, you will have one councillor to 8,000 to 9,000 constituents. So while these 5 municipalities have the amount of electoral districts fixed, they have them fixed. You cannot change that amount. But you could modify the regional corporations. You could move them from the basic 4 to 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12, depending on the amount of people. I think the time has come for consideration of these municipalities, whether we need to have those amount of councillors and so on, because of the councillors 1 to 3,000, 1 to 4,000, that needs to be looked at. And I offer that across to the Honourable Minister for his consideration and his team. The second point on that, the constitutionality of the local government issue. The local government is not constitutional, the local government elections is not constitutionally enshrined. And it's something that my Honourable Prime Minister between 2010 to 2015 was considering. And we had to deal with that, and that's why we went out for some consultations on that, but unfortunately that came to our thinking, and we were not able to conclude that. But local government election cannot be called at times. This is what PNM cancelled or postponed local government about 5 or 6 times in a previous incarnation. So it's not constitutionally enshrined to say that it must be called during a particular period of time. And therefore, it's something that has to be looked at, whether you want to bring it under the constitutional remit and make sure that it is embodied within the Constitution that local government elections must be called. So, Madam Speaker, I would have liked to respond a lot more to what the Honourable Minister said, but I have the respect for your ruling, and in the ambience of the House, where we do not want to detain the House much more, I would want to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to respond to the other side of the matter.
Minister, a member for Tobago West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was not scheduled to speak today, but I was inspired to join the conversation because I found it quite intriguing, and this is a matter I used to pursue when I was in the Senate. Now, this matter of local government reform is something that we on this side are very passionate and committed to. Madam Speaker, I believe that the success of democracy depends on the decentralization of power. And the fact that we are moving to bring power closer to the people is a very positive thing. Local government transformation, it brings the government and the governed closer together. It gives the people on the ground, the citizens of this nation, a greater say in their own development. It fosters unity and cooperation, ownership of the development process, and a cohesive approach to sustainable development. And the People's National Movement, we on this side are very passionate about such. Now, Madam Speaker, I just want to place on the record my total support for considering the Tobago House of Assembly model as we embark on our local government transformation process. Now, Madam Speaker, before a Tobago House of Assembly was established in Tobago, we the people of Tobago would have had to come to Trinidad for just about any and everything. Tobago House of Assembly in 1980. progressive development in Tobago under the different administrations, just because government was being brought closer to the people. There's a serious improvement in the delivery of our systems. Serious progress has been made. Now, the fact that we are borrowing elements of the Tobago House of Assembly model means that we are going to enhance our structure and our operations. I think that the Tobago House of Assembly has a wealth of knowledge and experience which could greatly assist as we seek to advance and enhance the way we do business and the way we operate in government, in local government here in Trinidad. Now, Madam Speaker, I listened to the contribution from the member of Couva South, and I find it Couva North, and I find it passing straight. I find it passing strange, Madam Speaker, that the member used the majority of her time trying to make a link between late submissions of the or late reports of the Auditor General for the Tobago House of Assembly and malfeasance of the Tobago House of Assembly. And I want to place categorically on record here today, Madam Speaker, there are no accusations of malfeasance. Not one secretary being brought to the court or to prison on any matter of corruption or anything of that sort. You had your chance and we let you speak, so ease it up. Yeah. So, Madam Speaker, the Auditor General report, and you know what, it's strange that you would single out the Tobago House of Assembly, because I sat on the Joint Select Committee that would have looked at municipal corporations and other state bodies and so on. And the Auditor General and many of their administrative and Auditor General reports are outstanding. And a matter of fact, I remember last year being a member of the Senate and the Auditor General admitting that it had been over 220-something years when you look at the different years in outstanding reports. So there is work to be done in all institutions as it relates to the Tobago House of Assembly, the municipal corporations, and the Auditor General has its work to do. The Tobago House of Assembly is not perfect. Neither is the municipal corporation or the ministries. When you look at the operations of the Tobago House of Assembly, we cannot compare to some of the scandal and the corruption that has been taking place here in Trinidad in these same municipal corporations and the ministry. We don't have anything to compare to a live sport. We don't have anything to compare, Madam Speaker, to life. We don't have anything to compare to an SIS scandal. So we don't have anything to compare to a Section 34 or prison gate. So, Madam Speaker, as much as the member speaks of allegations of corruption, show me
I would like to hear the member for Tobago West, please. Please continue.
You saying that?
Yes, Madam Speaker. So whilst there is much talk about allegations of corruption, Madam Speaker, they are unable to identify one serious case, Madam Speaker. So I want to place on record my support for considering the Tobago House of Assembly model. Of course, the House of THA model cannot be transplanted here in Trinidad because our model is more sophisticated than what you have here in Trinidad, but I'm sure that there are lessons to be learned and elements that could be taken and used here in Trinidad. So, Madam Speaker, when you look at the way our work is done in Tobago as it relates to TEMA, our TEMA model, or Tobago Emergency Management Agency model, is used as a template up the region. When you look at the way primary health care is delivered in Tobago, that too is used as a template for the rest of the region. Social services. Come on, think about it, Madam Speaker. For members of Parliament to have to come to Parliament or to a ministry to ask about disability grants and food cards in your constituency. If we can bring these services closer to the people, we know the people who are in need of social assistance, we know the age, we know the people who need surgeries and so on. If we can bring these services closer to the people, it will redound to the benefit of not just central government, but to the average man and woman and child in our communities. So these are some of the things we ought to consider. as we seek to improve and enhance our methods of local government, we have to ensure that the necessary legislation and systems and structures are established to ensure that the strong doesn't trample on the weak and that it is done properly. I'm going to take this opportunity also to raise the usual items that I've been bringing to the attention of the people of Trinidad and Tobago as we look at local government. In Tobago, we have 12 electoral districts, and we ought to consider what if we end up with a 6-6 result. So I've always been a proponent, I've always tried to raise the matter of having an odd number for Tobago, whether it is developing a 13th electoral district, because we would have learned from here in central government when we had 36 seats, and now we have 41 seats, so it's an odd number. So I wish to consider that we would consider, or the election and boundaries would consider, a 13th electoral district. There is also a section of the EBC Act that speaks to separating the electoral districts by physical landmarks like highways and waterways, and I think that there are some invisible demarcated lines, I should say, that we ought to consider as it relates to villages and how they operate and their culture and things of that nature. And finally, I think that the Election and Boundaries Commission ought to have an educational project or program so that people feel more comfortable and that their work is being done in a transparent and accountable manner, so we understand what we're doing. Because sometimes when the results are not in your favor, some people tend to want to question about the operations and the systems and the mechanisms of the EBC. So I think it's very important that there be a robust education campaign so that we as citizens could feel comfortable with the operations of the Election and Boundaries Commission. So, Madam Speaker, as I said before, nobody is perfect, but the Tobago House of Assembly is certainly a light in a dark room as it relates to governance. There are many lessons to be learned. We are not perfect, and we certainly don't have a criminal record like that we have seen in other bodies related to the state. So, Madam Speaker, with those few words, I sincerely thank you.
Minister of Rural Development and Local Government.
Madam Speaker, it's indeed a pleasure to wrap up this debate on the motion before us. I just want to thank all the members on this side who have contributed and added some greater level of clarity and to this motion. I also want to thank the contributions from the opposition bench. I think some of it is a basic consensus that they would support the motion of the EBC, which is a given really, because based on convention we do not really propose amendments or anything of the sort to that constitutional body. And secondly, the fact that by and large the opposition and the government seems to be reading from one page in terms of local government reform. There may be some difference as to the details of the structure, but by and large there's consensus. But just let me go through some specific issues raised by the various speakers. Before I do that, Madam Speaker, I just want to spend 5 minutes, probably max, on the whole concept of rural development, because we keep talking rural in the context of the regional cooperation and the very fact that I am the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government. Madam President, the concept of rural development was developed by this current administration, and in particular our Prime Minister, Dr. Rowley, being a rural child himself, coming out of Mason Hall in Tobago. And by and large, what seems to happen in the development of third world countries in particular is that when you do classic economic analysis for projects, there's something called market size. There's something called population density. So when you're looking to make an investment, to have a rate of return and a payout, the urban centers will always draw capital to itself. And if that free market system is allowed to operate unchecked, what will happen is that the development in general will be gravitated towards the population center. So this administration took the position that for rural development to take place, there has to be direct government intervention, direct government policy intervention. And that was the concept behind rural development. And I want to make the point that rural development and rural underdevelopment as we speak has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with economics. I quote, for example, Toko Matlot, largely an African community, strong supporters of the PNM. As we speak, they suffer from rural underdevelopment. Moruga, myself being a former member of parliament for there, but now the current member for Moruga, an African community, deeply rural, underdeveloped. And then we come now to Sidras Itakas, largely an East Indian community, very strong supporters of the United National Congress, but they suffer from the same symptoms as Moruga and Toko Matlot, because it is about the competition for capital. And that is why, in the concept of the rural development, we have said the purpose of the Ministry of Rural Development, and I differ with Minister Rambachan, it is not to urbanize rural areas. It is to give them a level of development where they have the facilities and the amenities that is similar to the urban centers. So what we will provide, an economic seed and connectivity. And let me quote our two flagship projects, at least for the next 2 years in these areas. One, the Toko Ferry, to provide a service, a fast ferry service. From Toko to Tobago is only 22 miles. But from Port of Spain, it is a whole long course. So you can have a ferry service almost on the hour, every hour from Toko. But that sounds good, but what about the connectivity? The point about it is that is why we have designed, and the tenders has gone out for route alignment, a first-class arterial road from Valencia to Toko. So here is the economic model for Toko. A sustainable fast ferry service from Toko to Tobago, running approximately on the hour, every 2 hours on the hour, and a first-class arterial road from Valencia to Toko. And that will provide the economic seed for the development. That will bring sustainability to the Toko Matlab community, and in particular, the St. Andrew, St. David counties of the past and the Sandy Grande Regional Corporation. We go to Moruga. The first major project that will be implemented by this government, and tenders will be out next month, is for the Moruga fishing facility, the Moruga fishing port, at a cost of $200 million. That will sow the economic seed for Moruga. And the connectivity. A contract has already been tendered in the Ministry of Works through NIDCO to have a full upgrade of the Moruga Road from Piti Cafe Junction straight down to Mark. And we will be fixing all the landslips on the road, doing route alignment where the landslips are extremely bad, and realigning the road. So Moruga, I am also, as we speak, looking at Grand Couva. Grand Couva, I have met with a group from Grand Couva, a young guy, a young boy, and he has so much ideas. I have met with him, and we will be doing Toko Matlot, so we don't want to be accused of bias. Toko Matlot, Moruga. So one of the third areas I'm planning to focus on is the Central Ranges. Beautifully placed, lovely scenery, cocoa estates. They have sustainability in agriculture, and we could move into a rural program in places like Grand Couva and Brasso. So, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to make the point that the Ministry of Rural Development is focused. It knows what it is doing. It's a double ministry now, rural development and the Ministry of Local Government. But let me come back now to specific rebuttals on the local government process. I want to compliment the member for Tobago West, because TEMA, the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, it is probably the best run institution in all of Trinidad and Tobago. They are so up to mark, so to speak. I made a visit to TEMA last week when I visited the THA in this whole consultation process. They have a database that if a category 2 hurricane is to hit Tobago, they can identify the individual houses that will be at risk. And then you can go on an evacuation plan, not to evacuate the whole village, but you go to the specific houses that will, in the model, will be destroyed by Category 2 hurricane. And if it increases to Category 3, it expands as to what other houses you come. They have a database of everybody who would need a wheelchair coming out of those houses. And they have monitoring systems. I mean, it is unbelievable. Sometimes I wonder what our ODPM is doing. Our last, the ODPM director bought 30,000 body bags in the last administration. That's all I remember of OPDM. However, I want to say I compliment Tobago West in terms of TEMA and also social service delivery. And that is why it is because of the THA, we have planned to include social service delivery as part of the local government reform, because it is so effective in Tobago. When you go to Tobago, Madam Speaker, you just know things run better than in Trinidad. The whole delivery mechanism is superior to ours, and it is largely because of the governance structure for delivery of services in Tobago through the THA. The THA used to be the Tobago County Council, you know. The THA used to be the Tobago County Council. And look where they have reached because of proper legislation, empowerment, and devolution of power and authority. So while we cannot, as I say, we are not duplicating, but we will be putting something not identical, but similar. And that's the key word. You know, the similar triangles and identical triangles. We're doing similar, but not identical for the THA model. Let me, I will go to the member for Couva North, because she took issue with the THA. I think member for Tobago West did a good job in rebutting her. But I just want to say also that the THA's accounts, the issue was never really with late submission of the accounts, you know. The issue was always with the process of the auditing from the Auditor General. And they kept asking for additional information, and the years just passed. So while they probably were delinquent by about a year, this whole idea of 7 years that the THA did not submit their accounts has not been true. And the member for Couva North insistence, based on that issue only, not to use the THA model, is flawed in logic. And to understand the THA, Madam Speaker, we have to understand, and let me bat for Tobago here. Tobago is a different island. We are one island subdivided into corporations. The island of Trinidad was first, and then Lord Harris made counties, and then the NAL made municipal corporation. Tobago has always been an independent island with a totally different history from Trinidad. The British married us without anybody giving consent. And here now we have to live through the 100 and so years of the relationship to Tobago. And for the first time, Tobago is telling Trinidad, listen, I am different to you, but I am part of you. Give me my autonomy. And I want to go on record and saying this administration plans to upscale Tobago. And one of the campaign promises of the PNM is that Tobago will be granted the full internal self-government and autonomy under this PNM administration. The member for Couva North also spoke about, with the reform process, we must have competent councillors. We know that. If you're giving them more responsibility, you'll need a better cadre and caliber of councillors. But that is the responsibility of the political party. I cannot legislate that. The PNM screening process, I can vouch for, because I sit on the PNM screening committee as its vice chairman. It is chaired by the political leader. So I know that we will be putting things in place in the PNM to get the caliber of councillors that we need. The ball is in your court. But I want to say, Madam Speaker, and to caution that when you seek public office in Trinidad through the electoral process, you cannot have no criteria. The only criteria is you must be 18 years and over and do not have a criminal record. Because you cannot set a bar legislatively to say you must have a degree, or you must have A-levels, or you must have 10 years experience. It cannot work so. This is a democracy, and everybody is entitled to seek public office. And some of the best politicians and leaders and administrators we have produced in this country has come from local. Kamaluddin Mohammed, Errol Mahabe, Lionel Sukaran, and Jarrett Narain. Okay, I mean, I can speak on the PNM side, and if you had a chance, you'd speak on the UNC side. Jarrett Narain has been one of the best local government practitioners in this country. He went on to become a minister of local government. So I just want to say that while we are conscious that we need a higher caliber of councillors, we have to be careful that legislatively we stay away from that. With regard to oversight, we are saying that one of the issues that came out of the consultation was oversight. Everybody brought up that point. Invariably, in the 14 consultations, everybody was concerned about oversight. I had proposed in the consultations, we'll have the Auditor General, we'll have the Ministry of Finance, you will be directly reporting to. This administration wants to establish a General Accounting Office in the Parliament that will seek some online audit function for the ministries of government. If that project kicks off in earnest, I can see that being expanded to have oversight of the 14 municipal corporations. But having said that, who will guard the guards? That's the question we continuously ask, okay? So we cannot be scared of empowering people, because at the level of building a society, you have to have confidence in your people. We have so many young graduates coming out. We have so many leaders on the horizon. We have so many new, a cadre of new leaders that are coming out, and we have to put the ball in their court, and we have to let them understand that they are taking over the leadership. They are probably watching us and criticizing us for not being transparent and for being corrupt. And this is a new generation that wants to lead. And there are so many good young people in this country, Madam Speaker. And I think it's time we pass the baton in their hands, and this local government reform process will do just that. All right. Let me go to Tim Gopeesingh. I see nothing here on the page for you. So excuse me if I don't want you to feel that I'm slighting you, member for Caroni East, okay? But I couldn't take any notes for you because I think you will be butting the Minister of Education and member for Arriva. So I apologize, okay?
If you did that, you will be in breach of the standing order.
Member for Tabakit, an experienced practitioner in local government, a former local government minister, a former chairman of the St. Patrick County Council at the time, a former mayor of Chaguanas until Jack Warner overthrew you. Okay? So, and Ganga Singh, all right, and member for Chaguanas West. Madam Speaker, the overthrow of Suraj Rambachan as mayor of Chaguanas. All right, Madam Speaker, let me get back on course. The member for Tabakit raised the point of the inequity in the tax base, and that is particularly true. But the tax base will not, that alone will not provide the full budgetary requirements for the corporation. However, there are challenges in implementing that, and we're still working out a matrix to determine how this will work. I'll give you an example. Point 14. Point 14 is the smallest borough. It has 36,000 electors. Burgesses. Cities are citizens. Yeah. If we include the Atlantic tax base in the Point 14 borough, their income just shoots through the sky. The same thing with Couva, Tabakit, Alparo. If we include the Point Lisa's tax base, their revenue stream will shoot through the sky. And then we left with corporations like Sandy Grande, Mayaro, whose tax base based on property taxes will be minimal. So we will be working out a matrix as to how we will do that. But the principle of allowing regional corporations to collect municipal taxes as it relates to land and building and property taxes is still valid. But we'll have to work out a matrix as to how this is done and how do we provide the top-up or the scale down, as the case may be, in terms of the budgetary allocation. We are still contemplating the details of that. A lot of recommendation has come from the consultation that we should have some, as Member for Tabakid also suggested, that a percentage of the national budget as per the Tobago model. I make no full commitment on that. That process is still fluid, and we are looking at that. The will to implement the transformation mentioned by Tabakid. And he produced a document there that he was flying. Yeah, I fly in this document. And Madam Speaker, let me just say something here. There is no local government minister in the history of Trinidad and Tobago that did more research, prepared more reports, and did more consultation than the Honorable Hazel Manning when she was Minister of Local Government. Then we came down to 2013, and then Minister Suraj Rambachan, he had consultation, he had report. I tell the consultations every time. When I went to the Ministry of Local Government, there are a pile of reports, HISU, on local government reform. About this? From the ground up, yeah. And what we found out, and I didn't study all the reports, but I browsed through a lot of them. And basically what they were saying is the same thing. You know? And what they were saying all made sense, but then still nothing happened. And why nothing happened is because as a society, we suffer from inertia. And underdevelopment is defined by inertia because nothing happens. Decades pass and nothing fundamental or strategic happens in our society because there's not the will to do it, the political will to do it. And what we are saying this time, this administration under Dr. Rowley, we are not kicking the can down the road further. That is basically what we are saying. And to do that, because intuitively, and let me make another point here, intuitively, human beings do not like to give up power. Centralized power is part of the human psyche. The only politician I knew give up power voluntarily is a guy called Mikhail Gorbachev in the Soviet Union, called Perestroika. And Mandela to a lesser extent, but Perestroika was one of the most fundamental political events of the 20th century. And we intuitively do not give up power. And for this local government reform to take place, I set one criteria. For this local government to take place, reform to take place, it must have the total buy-in of the leader, the total buy-in of the Prime Minister. And I want to go on record in this Parliament to say that while I am championing the process of local government reform, it is being orchestrated from the top. This process has the total buy-in of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and it is going to happen. No, and finally, Madam Speaker, I want to make the point that this local government reform process is apolitical. It has absolutely nothing to do with the political landscape. The powers we are planning to put out to the local government bodies will be equally administered with an even hand. So the power of the chairman of the Diego Martin Corporation, who is all PNM, will be the same power as the chairman of the Penal DB Regional Corporation, which is all UNC, and every combination therein and within. So it has nothing to do with politics, because in this country, if the people of Penal DB decides to vote for UNC, that is their right. Just so it is the right of the people of Diego Martin to vote for the People's National Movement. And it is us as politicians and as leaders to have to win people over. And when you are in government, it is your duty to win people over so that you can bring them on your side. And the best way to bring them on your side is to show that you are altruistic and you believe in people-centered development and that you are going to deliver the goods and services that they want. The other issue I want to raise is that as part of this local government reform process, we really going to propose that we have full-time councillors. Okay, we are going to have full-time councillors so that the issue that was raised by Couva North about remuneration for the councillors, because I want to make it clear that the Minister of Local Government doesn't set the salary of councillors. The salaries of councillors is set by the Salaries Review Commission. And the salaries, once the Salaries Review Commission deem you to be part-time, they would administer their remuneration package to so just as they treat you on the opposition bench as members of parliament, which is a part-time position according to the laws of Trinidad and Tobago. So so you talking on behalf of the councillors, you have to start to talk on behalf of yourself too now, because you see your job as full-time. The power structure, especially as it relates to the Salaries Review Commission, see you as part-time. You have been paid as a part-time person, and you claim to be doing a full-time job. So even parliamentary reform is required in the context of this. And finally, Madam Speaker, we have identified some of the challenges that currently face the local government system. It has been identified as political interference and political perception. And let me deal with this political perception issue. When the PNM government is in power, the UNC1 corporation perceived and perceives that they're being victimized and they're being starved of funds. When the UNC is in power, the PNM corporation perceives that they are being starved of funds. I don't know which is right or which is wrong. But what I am saying is that this local government transformation process will put that right, because we will be now allocating greater level of funding for the first time to the regional corporations in Trinidad.
We have to put that in law.
We have to put in law if we want to set a specific percentage target. Otherwise, it will be left to the central government administration at their discretion. We are still looking at what is the best matrix and the best formula to use. Because you see, Tobago is separate because the tribunal ruled that 4% is the limit. But we cannot budget in our country too, whereby legislation we keep setting percentages. We will be handcuffed in the system. Okay, so I said I make no judgment or no final judgment on that matter, but we are looking at it in all seriousness and all earnestness. And finally, the poor administration. As we currently speak, I dealt with that in my presentation, that we need a revamped administrative structure, a revamped delivery system with new skill sets and new competencies within the corporation. So, Madam President, Madam Speaker, sorry, I know it is not, I will be breaching the standard orders if I bring you into debate, but I just want to go on record and say, you yourself should understand what I'm saying as a former chairman of the Diego Martin Regional Corporation. And a good one at that. So, Madam Speaker, in closing, I want to recommend to this Honorable House the adoption of the 8th report of the Election and Boundaries Commission under the Municipal Corporation Act and the Election and Boundaries Commission Local Government Act Chapter 2550 for the purposes of the local government election. And also I want to encourage the opposition in particular to continue their support. Right now it is still lukewarm, coming on warm, for the local government reform process. I want to see the temperature rising on that side as it relates to this agenda. And I will prepare the policy statements and the legislative reform for presentation to this Parliament in due course. And having said that, Madam Speaker, I beg to move.
Honourable members, the question is, be it resolved that the draft of the Elections and Boundaries Commission, Local Government and Tobago House of Assembly Order 2016 be approved. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Leader of the House.
Madam Speaker, I would like to crave your indulgence to return to the order paper and return to motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister.
Does this mean the concurrence of the House? Leave is granted.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that Mrs. Glenda Jennings-Smith be appointed to serve on the Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration in lieu of Ms. Shamfa Cudjoe.
Honourable members, the question is that Mrs. Glenda Jennings-Smith be appointed to serve on the Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration in lieu of Ms. Shamfa Cudjoe. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that this House do now adjourn to May 20th, 2016 at 1:30 p.m.
Honourable members, there are two matters that qualify to be raised on the motion for the adjournment of the House, filed by the members for Caroni East and Tabaquite. I will now call upon the member for Caroni East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mine is a very simple motion in terms of requiring some answers from the Honourable Minister of Works and Transport, under whose jurisdiction work had started in my constituency from the Ministry of Works. Well, not my constituency, but the constituency of the people I represent, Caroni East. And that's with particular reference to people who feel very unhappy and discomforted as a result of work that had been started by us, but we hadn't been able to complete because we were no longer in government, but had started by the pure program of the Ministry of Works on the Welcome Road and Ragunanan Road. Welcome coming to Ragunanan Road. And there are hundreds of homes there where close to about more than 1,500 citizens reside. And because of the work that was started in terms of the box trains, because that road was really dilapidated, and amongst all the work that had been done in the constituency, we did quite a lot of work. But that one remained outstanding, as had been started by the Pure program, and a contractor had started the work there, and they stopped, started again and stopped, and then the change of administration took place. Work continued for about a month or so after the administration changed, but then stopped altogether. And many of the people felt so unhappy that they were wanting to do the same thing that has been happening across the country in terms of burning tires and and doing all sorts of things that are not in conformity with the law. That you know, people shouldn't be burning tires and putting things across the road. I am not in favor of that at all. If you want to say that you're unhappy about something, there's a way you can do it. And I spoke to the residents. I told them that I will bring this matter for consideration and get a response from the Honorable Minister of Works. It had been started by the PURE program, but the minister, I wrote the minister because when we came into office, when we came into opposition, the Honorable Minister of Works, I think, wrote all the MPs. I know I got a letter from him asking us what are the priority roads that we need to have repaired. I got a letter from that, and I gave him 12 roads that in a matter of prioritization. I had written him on this matter for the Welcome Road and the Ragunanan Road people, and the minister did respond. And I thank the minister for responding, indicating that he is now putting it through to the hands of the regional corporation, and that he will get in touch with us again. He will write the regional corporation and indicate what is happening, and we will get to know what is happening. But Honorable Minister, through you, Madam Speaker, the regional corporations, as far as I remember, each councillor gets about $30,000 a month to run a regional to run their business. And the Honorable Minister spoke just a while ago about the regional corporations. So that volume of work is a long road with needing box drains on both sides, and the road is terrible. There's a lot of dust that's flying in the atmosphere. There is a early childhood education close by. The children are becoming very sick as a result. The school has to be closed and netting and so on put. So I'm appealing on behalf of the residents of Welcome Road and Ragunanan Road to the Honorable Minister of Works, and even through to the Honorable Minister of Local Government, to see how they can bring some alleviation of the plight of the residents there, and bring some degree of comfort and some health back to them because of the amount of dust in the dry season that they had been experiencing. So far they feel comforted that I will bring the matter here, and based on that, I will have to report back to them to see how they think about it. So I look forward to some support from the Honorable Minister of Works to alleviate the discomfort of the residents in that particular area. Thank you very much.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like to begin by indicating my regret for the suffering and the pain that the persons at Welcome Road and Ragunanan Road must endure. But I rather suspect opposition members behaving the way they do might very well be giving the impression that someone else is responsible for their plight. So I hope that the few minutes I have, they will understand where we are at. Now, Welcome Road and Ragunanan Roads are located in the district of Caroni. Welcome Road is approximately 3.5 kilometers in length, and Ragunanan approximately 2.8 kilometers. A road condition report revealed that Ragunanan Road itself, the pavement, that is to say the roadway, was good, described as good, although it required additional concrete drainage works, box drains and so on. And Welcome Road, the pavement, very poor, both Welcome Road South and North, because it's two segments of it. While the ministry recognizes the importance of these thoroughfares to the people in those neighborhoods, as the member indicated a while ago, this really falls within the remit of the Couva Tabaki Talparo Regional Corporation. But here I am today having to answer for this situation. So that's the first important point. And of course, as the minister alluded to, the member alluded to a while ago, on an annual basis, and I intend to continue this, we seek to find out from members of parliament and from the regional corporation what are the roads that require attention in their particular neighborhood, in their particular constituencies or regions, cities, boroughs. And this is typically sent to our PURE division, where they would analyze the problems, assess the work, put a costing to it, and will treat with it to the extent that, of course, money permits. And this is how the situation generally works. And this project, these roads were attended to by the PURE program in that regard. But, Madam Speaker, I have a record, a woeful record in front of me. Let me help the residents of those areas to understand. In 2011, a contract was given to Chambrin's general contractors to do some drainage works on Ragunanan Road. It cost almost just almost $1 million. In 2012, a contract was given to another firm, LS General Contracting Services, to do some drainage works for $760,000. In 2012 again, Ragunanan Road, a contract given to General Maintenance Services Limited to do some concrete draining works, $1.2 million. In 2015, a contract was given to Forso Limited to do drainage works along Welcome Road, because typically you try to do the drainage first and then the pavement, it appears, just over $1 million, about $1,069,000. In 2015, again, a second package, a second contract to Global Competitive Strategies Limited to do concrete drainage works along Welcome Road again for just over $1 million. Madam Speaker, this is the line that is very important. When you look at the column, the report that I have in front of me, the status says all 100% complete. Every one of them. And then we go now to the biggest one. Welcome Road again, 2015, Siraram Brothers Limited. $5.5 million of work, and the scope of works included 1,300 kilometers of box drains, inclusive of 350 meters of sidewalk, construction of driveway entrances to some residences, strengthening and rehabilitation works for approximately 950 meters of roadway, and paving of 950 meters of roadway. And this I want the residents to hear. The status of this, according to the report, is 35% complete. $5.5 million, 5.5. And listen to what the report says. The concrete drainage and roadworks package is incomplete due to financial constraints experienced by the contractor. Completed are approximately 497 meters of concrete drains and 200 meters of sidewalk slabs. So, Madam Speaker, altogether between 2012 and 2015, the state paid contractors $10.4 million. And today I have to sit in this house and hear the member for Caroni tell me about the need for urgent and critical works in that area. Yeah? So I want to as well say, just a passant, I encountered, Madam Speaker, an outstanding package, monies owed to contractors in the tune of $475 million in the Ministry of Works. Some of the contracts issued without any writing whatsoever, about $60 million worth of them. Two claimants went to court recently and the judge had some scathing comments to speak about accountability for state resources, which will be held up in due time. This is the situation that we inherited. But it falls to us to work it out. At this time, we have some money challenges in this country. We didn't have it in the last 5 years, or at least we did, but they kept it a secret. They even lied. But now we know. I'm sorry. They even, let me withdraw that.
Just withdraw that, please.
That is unparliamentary. They continued to stay as far from the truth as they possibly could. It appears as though they don't feel comfortable in the atmosphere of truth. Madam, yes. So, Madam Speaker, we have the project in view because we understand the citizens are suffering, notwithstanding $10 million and 3 years And today we have to hear about urgent and difficult. So I have to ask as I conclude, if $10.4 million was spent on these two roads between 2012 and 2015, and today the member has to tell us about urgent and critical need, I must ask, what went wrong? Why are the residents still made to suffer today? Who did the poor work or none at all? Who abandoned the residents in the course of this work? Put more colloquially, Madam Speaker, who stole the cheese?
Syrup wasn't paid. Syrup wasn't paid if we talk about it.
And who let the cheese grabbers out? Madam Speaker, as the member for Dago Martin Central once said in answer to similar questions, ask yourself. But we have a duty, we have a responsibility, we have made a promise to the people of Trinidad and Tobago to improve their circumstances with the little resources we have available. And we are confident as we eradicate waste and graft and corruption, we will produce for these people far more than they ever had with the little resources we have, because ours have barakat. Theirs had none. And we will approach this program as soon as funds become available, because if the country missed it, we are experiencing some challenging financial times and circumstances. But help is on the way. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Tabakit.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise with your permission to bring to the attention of Parliament, and in particular WASA, the matter of the quality of restoration of areas of roadway, especially my constituency, which have been dug up for repairs and also to repair damaged or broken water mains, or to replace old mains with new mains, or to put in new mains altogether. Madam Speaker, this matter is a very serious matter, because the quality of restoration of roadway throughout the country by WASA has been a problem. And while one may think it's just a matter of the quality of restoration, it has implications for life and limb. Madam Speaker, there is no doubt in my mind, if you read the newspapers from time to time, about the complaints made by drivers whose vehicles fall into these potholes which WASA dug in order to do work and didn't fill up, and then it got deeper, and people had to buy shocks and repair their vehicles and what have you. But more than that, there have been incidences where people have lost their lives, where people have got into serious accidents and ended up in the hospital with broken limbs and what have you, and damaged in a very serious way. So the matter that I'm raising is not just a matter that should be taken casually, but as a matter that should be taken very seriously. Madam Speaker, in fact, some areas have now become obstacle courses. And I'm telling you, if you drive in areas of my constituency, where they have dug up along the side of the road, what has actually happened? And these are roads paved as recently as 2 years. The road has narrowed. My fellow member of Parliament for Faizabad, for example, driving from Avocat Junction to South Oropuch, you have to actually drive around ends on the roads now. You drive into Superior Old Road by Avocat Premier Houses, and they have dug up the road across the road and they have not fixed it. They're just ignoring things there because WASA is telling you we have no money. Madam Speaker, in my constituency, several areas have been dug up, and for the intention of the minister, I have made a list. Light pole 94, Bonaventure Main Road. Light pole 71, Bonaventure Main Road. Light pole 9, Guaracara Street. Light pole 56, Monrush. Light pole 66, Monrush. Light pole A5, Thompson Street. Light pole 7, Thompson Street. Light pole 25, Bonaventure Main Road. Light pole 65, St. Fabian. And in St. Fabian, where a number of places have been dug up, due to the broken mains, water have leaked, and I can take you, Madam Speaker, and show you houses that have collapsed as a result of this water running down from the WASA lines and damaging the foundation of the houses. A $400,000 plus house now leans like this, Madam Speaker. And these are very serious matters, and WASA doesn't want to take any kind of blame or any kind of responsibility. There's always some kind of legal face that they are setting up. Light pole number 2, Springland. Light pole opposite police station on Henry Street, opposite the police station. They have dug up the road and not fixed it. Beddoe Street, Gasparillo, Warakara Tabakit, the crossing on Pune Road just after Sandstone Road, Springville Road, 3 areas not patched properly that have been dug up. Caratal Tortuga, Forest Park Road near the Jesus Resurrection Church, in front of the church, they have dug it up and haven't fixed it. The patrons of that church go there every Saturday and Sunday, and they have to go around these holes. One is about nearly 100 feet long that they have restored in a bad way, and now you cannot even drive over it. Bokal Trace Forest Park. And I don't want to read the whole list, but there's a whole number of areas, Madam Speaker, which I think the Minister has to look at. And why is this happening? WASA has probably 2 groups which does these repairs. One is an internal group that they have in-house, and the second one, the external contractors. And it is very obvious now that some of the contractors are taking these repairs for a joke. The contractors are not technically competent. You go on the site where they are doing the repairs, and you'll see they don't even have the proper equipment to do the job. For example, Madam Speaker, when you're building a road, and you dig out the road, you put in back sand, and then you put crusher run, and then you take at least a 5 or 10 ton roller and you roll that. When they dig out the road, sometimes they're not even putting back crusher run, and they just put in the asphalt on it. So that when you drive after a period of a couple of hours, the whole thing sinks. And then that is a whole puddle of water, and then sinks further and so on. Madam Speaker, they have cut the roads in certain places to put in lines. And when they go back to pave back the road, they are paving within the 2 lines. So that there is a channel on this side and a channel on this side. Even if it's an inch wide, water begins to get into that. And now when you drive on the road, like you drive along Forest Park Road, you'll see an entire drain in the side of the road that was supposed to be pure asphalt. The standards that were set by Pure when I was there in the Ministry of Works meant that they had to pave at least 1 meter on both sides of the channel that they cut, so that you'll have it properly sealed. That, to me, is not being done again. So you have a very, very, very poor management and poor supervision and poor quality work being done by WASA and their contractors or agents in the restoration of these roads. They are also using poor quality materials, Madam Speaker. There are certain standards for the quality of material that is being used. Madam Speaker, as I understand it from my colleague when he was Minister responsible for WASA, whenever roadworks had to be done, in the budget, they would place in the budget money to restore the roads. This is why when, under my colleague Mr. Gopeesingh, when they dug up the bus route going from Arima to Port Spain, if you go back there now and you see the quality of restoration, it is good restoration. The bus route was properly restored because he personally supervised it and ensured it was really done. Why can't we have that same standard across the country? Why can't that standard be enforced? Madam Speaker, there was a coordinating committee set up between WASA and the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, as then called, to ensure that the standards are enforced, to ensure that the proper restoration is done. What has happened to that coordinating committee? What has happened to the regular meetings that were supposed to take place? What has happened to the meetings where WASA would tell the ministry, look, we are going to be digging up those roads, therefore don't go and pave. But now you're still seeing areas that they paved, WASA is coming and digging it up after. The whole system, it seems, has broken down. Madam Speaker, I want to make some recommendations with respect to how this might be dealt with. We are sitting in this parliament today and we're discussing this matter, and the Honourable Minister, good-natured, would get up and he will respond for 10 minutes. And Madam Speaker, I'm sorry to say, but that will be the end of the matter. WASA is not going to be listening to us. But there's a joint select committee, or joint select committees of this parliament. And I am asking today, based upon what is transpiring here, that the joint select committee consider, through you or through whoever, calling a special meeting to ask questions that we as members of parliament raise here on matters of the adjournment, so that we can get something done on behalf of our constituents forced by the parliament, which has oversight over what is happening in the country. If the parliament has oversight over the budgets of the country, then the parliament must also have oversight and be able to intervene where the agencies fail, and the joint select committees are, in my view, one of the places they can be called upon to respond to some of this. Madam Speaker, I also think that WASA is obligated, Mr. Minister, to do an internal review of the quality of contractors that they now have. and what is happening. An audit of the quality of supervision that they now have in terms of what is happening there on the roadway. And thirdly, I believe that the WASA should institute the system of retention of monies. Whether it's 10% or 20%, they should institute that, so that where within 3 months the road deteriorates after they have done the repairs, this retention money can then be withheld and the roads can be restored. Madam Speaker, I thank you for this intervention.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to respond to my colleague on the other side, and I smile because it's interesting, after spending close to 40 years in another place, to start a new career in this house and listen to people who give the impression that all these things that are taking place is taking place within the last 8 months. And I listened to someone who held the portfolio, Madam Speaker, of Minister of Works and Infrastructure. It is interesting also that he was a member of a government who used certain cliches. Your government working for you. Water for all. And suddenly, they recognize that the contractors are using poor quality materials in the last 8 months. And there are bad contractors working on our roads in the last 8 months. And they produce substandard works in the last 8 months. But part of the problem, Madam Speaker, is caused by an individual who went around laying pipe all over the country. Laying pipe in Separia, laying pipe in Tabaki. He was just laying pipe all over the country. I realized even in Tobago he wanted to lay pipe. Pipe, and more pipe.
That's what they said.
And the result is that when you lay so much pipes all over the place, the pipes leak. They leak. Especially when you, as the saying goes, hurry bird has built badness. So in your haste to lay pipe, you didn't lay the pipe properly. And now the pipes are leaking all over Tabaki. Madam Speaker, the Water and Sewage Authority currently repairs approximately 3,000 leaks per month in Trinidad and Tobago, with an estimated 90% being done on the roadway, resulting in the need for road restoration works. Road reinstatement is done in 2 phases, as the former Minister of Works and Infrastructure knows. There's a temporary phase and there's a permanent phase. During the temporary phase, it's carried out soon after the leak is repaired, so to allow citizens to use the road. During this phase, the pipes are pressure tested to ensure that there are no more leaks. This is done in terms of 1 to 1.5 kilometers at a time. Once there are no leaks, permanent reinstatement of the roadway is done. Now this gives the impression that WASA is not doing, or the contractors is not doing a good job. But my colleague on the other side knows, because he was a super minister in the past government, Minister of Road and Infrastructure. So he understands, and he spoke, he says that both himself and WASA had collaboration. So he knows that the first stage is a temporary stage.
But then why are they not coming after 6 months to fix it? If the temporary stage lasts 6 months.
Once they are pressure tested and there are no leaks, the permanent phase comes in. The permanent reinstatement utilizes hot mix asphalt and is undertaken on an average about 6 to 8 weeks after the initial repair has been done. That is the problem. That is something I intend to deal with WASA to ensure that the permanent job is done in a shorter period of time. But it's something we inherited from before, more than 8 months ago. It is this that contributes to the many complaints received about WASA poor quality road repair. And I have to do a lot of work with WASA because of what transpired over the last 8 months. They got WASA was changed to my colleagues on the other side, help from my colleagues on the other side to Workers Against Smooth Asphalt. Because of the activities over the years. The Tabakit area has benefited from a significant amount of repairs to leaking mains, which have resulted in a high volume of work restoration in the area. And have contributed to the length of time for completion of road restoration works in the area. Madam Speaker, a major contributing factor to the recent delays was the need for a review by the new board of WASA of the procurement arrangement and practices leading to pipeline and road restoration. This is to eliminate corruption and ensure that the authority gets value for money in the award of road construction contracts. And in the future, we will tend to spread the contracts over a wider amount of contractors rather than a small group of contractors who have been accused by my colleagues on the other side of giving substandard work. In this regard, road restoration and reinstatement is currently being undertaken by WASA in-house crews in order to improve the delivery time, response times, and reduce the inconvenience to residents. WASA has increased the number of crews for both leak repairs and road restoration. Madam Speaker, as it pertains to road restoration, there's a close collaboration, as my colleagues on the other side mentioned, between WASA and the Ministry of Works and Transport. The Ministry of Works and Transport determines the protocol to be followed, including specification of standards. This government, Madam Speaker, is cognizant of the critical importance of the road network to be sustained to the sustainable development of communities and the well-being of our residents. And I apologize to the residents of Tabakit for the inconvenience caused by this roadway. In this regard, we remain fully committed to timely completion of road restoration and repair works so as to reduce inconvenience to the affected residents. Madam Speaker.
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
Very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just crave your indulgence. I know you have to put the question, but I crave your indulgence to indicate that on the excuse me, the next sitting of the House, we'll be on Friday the 20th, we'll be dealing with committee business, and we'll be dealing with motion number 2 on the order paper, which is the motion that says, be it resolved that this House adopt the report of the Joint Select Committee on the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Property Amendment Bill 2015. Thank you, ma'am.
Honorable members, the question is that this House now do adjourn to Friday, 20th of May 2016 at 1:30 p.m. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to Friday, the 20th of May, 2016 at 1:30 p.m.